Good morning and welcome to 365 Days of Amazing Stories with Theo Mayer. Here we are on day 353, and I'm continuing the story of a sneeze. The old wise woman was willing to help the prince, but when he interrupted for the third time, she had said to him, "Look, I'm not going to do this if you're going to keep interrupting me. You can go find someone else to help you." The prince, he just begged her to help him and said he would no longer interrupt her. And so she continued, but again, she had to figure out where she was in, unfolding the plan to allow him and the princess to be together. So she picked back up where I guess she had left off the last time, which was with him sticking his nose into the sack of ground pepper that he would bring with him, sneezing, and then jumping up to his feet. Now, she was going to let the guards, of which there would be a number of armed guards accompanying her and the princess to the cemetery. She was going to let the guards know that once this corpse, that the demon king that was inhabiting the princess, once her incantations got the demon prince to leave the princess, it would inhabit the corpse. And when the corpse sneezed and jumped up, that it would grab one of the soldiers, devour the soldier, and then the princess would be free. Now you might think for a second why this was going to be part of the plan, to tell these soldiers, these brave men, what would happen. But the prince agreed to everything that the wise old woman suggested. The plan seemed like a sound one. And after the old wise woman had her night's rest, she went to the king the next day. She told him the terrible news that the princess was inhabited by this demon king. And the king said, yes, it must be true, for she has certainly seemed, out of sorts these days. Of course, wouldn't she be out of sorts? She was being controlled in a way that, wasn't very nice. She wasn't free to love the one that she loved. Of course she was out of sorts. Well, the king said, "Look, it must be true, so do whatever you must do." Well, the wise old woman, she told the king what her plan was. That she would need to take the princess to the cemetery and there find a fresh corpse yet to be buried. And with specific incantations, she would get the demon king to leave the princess and inhabit the corpse's body. She, of course, requested a good troop of armed men to accompany her and the princess, which the king, of course, agreed to. In fact, he had planned to do so anyway, for he did not let the princess go anywhere without guards accompanying her. Well, the wise old woman had chosen a night where the moon would be full. And when that evening came, there she was, walking down the roads of Benares towards the cemetery, which was up on a hill. Now, it was a hot and sticky night, and the moon hung in a yellowish glow almost like a jaundiced moon. That yellow jaundiced look that eyes can get when the liver is not functioning properly. Bats flitted here and there. Wild dogs, while they barked and howled in some eerie way. And everyone walking down the road felt some sense of doom as they walked toward the cemetery. There was a troop of about 18 or 20 guards, the wise old woman and the princess. And down the road they trudged. The cemetery came in sight. Now, up on top of the hill, the prince had been waiting. Now, there was a dampness to the air as well, and close to the ground it was cold almost, cool, damp. And the prince had been laying on the ground on top of the hill there, waiting for the old woman and his bride-to-be and the soldiers to come. Now, during that time he'd been laying there, it was excruciating. He saw things that really weren't there. He felt that, well, there were creatures around him, scaly creatures with snakes for hair. He, well, jumped at every twig that broke close by in fear that something was coming after him. It was hard for him to lay still. Everything in him told him to run. But he forced himself to stay. He exerted great will, thinking only of the princess, and that he would do anything and everything necessary to have her as his wife. It was a strange thing. As cold as it was there at the ground, there was a heat that was kind of boiling up inside of him. He was almost feverish, and he felt this cold sweat at the base of his skull, his lower back, and, well, at almost every joint, his knees and ankles. There at his shoulders, under his arms, and his elbows, and his wrists. All he could feel were sticky with sweat. He wondered what was happening to him, but he lay still. He lay still, waiting for the wise old woman and all who accompanied her to arrive. And we'll leave him there for now. Find out what happens next.